when taking photos, you have to have maybe an evidence showing that you really created this picture. Know when it's your property and know when it's not your property. Anybody that goes against the law will definitely face the wrath of the law.
Welcome to Aspire Multimedia Studio, where True Talk makes pure sense. Today we celebrate World Intellectual Property Day. And you cannot have innovation without protection, and you cannot have protection without enforcement. And that is why we are pleased to have in our studio today a seasoned scholar, a legal juggernaut, and he is Abdul Mohammed Esquire. It's so good to have you in the studio today.
Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure to tap from this wealth of knowledge of yours.
Thank you so much.
All right, barrister, we're celebrating Intellectual Property Day. So educate us in layman terms. What is intellectual property and what qualifies a creative work for protection under the intellectual property law?
So when we say intellectual property,
Yes,
we mean creating something from your mind, right? So it's a human creation from the mind. So it's, for instance, you sitting back to think of something. It could be music, it could be art, it could be any type of skill from your mind. So you being able to think of that means that thing you are creating is intellectual, right? And it's called an intellectual property, as the name implies.
okay. So what qualifies a creative work for protection under the IP law?
You being able to sit back, relaxed, and think of something creative, right?
Yes.
Bringing a result out from that thought of creativity makes you entitled,
Okay.
right,
Yes.
to that property or that thing you created from your mind.
So that alone qualifies it for protection under the IP law.
Well, we can say that.
All right. So what steps should creatives take once they discover that their intellectual property has been infringed upon?
I'll first of all advise they
Okay.
consult an intellectual property attorney.
Okay.
Well, it is when you consult an attorney or a lawyer, so to say, that has invested so much knowledge or has so much knowledge in intellectual property,
Sure.
only then will you be able to, know how to go about it, right? It is the lawyer that will help you investigate to see if really your property has been infringed or your intellectual property has been infringed. Yes.
What penalties do we have and how effective are the current enforcement mechanisms in Nigeria?
Well, we have, it could be, the penalties could be civil or criminal.
Okay.
If it is a criminal infringement,
Okay.
you pay fine, or you could be imprisoned for 3 years or thereabouts,
Wow.
ranging on how cumbersome the infringement is. And on the other side, if it is civil, it could be an injunction refraining the other party from continuing or having possession of the copyright properties. Yes, and the other leg of the question where you talked about
How
enforcement.
effective are the enforcement mechanisms in Nigeria?
Well, it is really effective, but even though, we have definitely some loopholes in the enforceability, right?
Sure.
But it's really effective through litigation and regulations as well. We have the Copyright Act. It's laid down rules and regulations as to what is going to border on copyright infringement and whatsoever. And so with that, I'm sure it is enforceable. Anybody that goes against the law will definitely face the wrath of the law.
Can you give us some common IP violations that happen in the creative industry that we do not regard as being serious, but actually we infringing on people's IP rights?
So, before now,
Yes.
intellectual property is not recognized,
Okay.
right? But the world is evolving.
Sure.
Everywhere is developing, right? Particularly in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So because of this development, IP law is recognized, and as such, it has to be protected, right? So the common example I can give is in the music industry or in the film industry. Davido might decide to release a song today.
Okay.
A common artist will, from out of the blues, just decide to get some part of the music, refurbish it, and make it his. The original owner is Davido. He created it with his mind, right?
Yes.
So that process of the regular artist picking out from what Davido suffered to create is an infringement, right? And as such, we can say that he has infringed on Davido's intellectual property through the music he has created. Talking of film industries, we have films that tell a very beautiful story, right? Another producer might decide to fetch from that story and try to modernize it and make it his. Meanwhile, the original owners are there. And without any consult or without any permission, so to say, the producer will just go ahead to make the whole effort his, which is wrong. So that also is an infringement. Okay, and so many other examples. Maybe taking a picture as well.
Okay.
A photographer might decide to snap you a picture.
Okay.
You know, in a normal sense, because you appeared in the picture,
yes, my picture,
you would say you are the legal owner of the picture, but it's not so. The photographer is the owner of the picture, right? Because he used his effort, his creativity to bring out the result. He used his own camera to bring out
the picture.
It doesn't really matter. That is what the law says, right? The photographer is the owner of the picture.
Well, I paid for them.
Yeah, you did, but who brought the picture to life?
Oh my God.
That is the question.
Intellectual property, it is indeed. All right, barrister. Before we go, we know we charge very highly for these things. So for free, can you give us free legal advice to creatives on intellectual property and how to protect their rights?
I would say both creatives should really invest much in knowing about intellectual property. Only that will one know, okay, when I'm creating this, I have to document it, the process of creating this, in order not to allow anybody claim it. Just like a photographer, behind the scenes are very important, right? Okay. When taking photos, you have to have maybe an evidence showing that you really created this picture to avoid anyone from God knows where claiming all your efforts, right? Okay. And also you should probably learn about the intellectual property. Know when it's your property and know when it's not your property in order not to infringe on another person's property.
So you heard the legal juggernaut giving you legal advice for free. Like you don't pay anything. And yes, learn about intellectual property and document your process. So you can always have claim. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
For coming to talk to us. Really appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
And thank you very much for watching. Ensure to follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and X at Aspio Connect. Until you come your way again next time, stay tuned to Aspio Multimedia Studio and we wish you a happy Intellectual Property Day.